Testing has officially begun for 2026, and there is a lot to talk about. The majority of next year's IMSA grid recently took to the iconic Daytona International Speedway for a traditional preseason test. The prototypes and GTs at this event across the 4 major classes got a rare opportunity to prepare for the season ahead, giving us our first look at 2026. But one of the biggest headlines across the weekend was the unveiling of multiple Evo packages for 2026, and no team drew more attention than Pfaff Motorsports, who brought the brand new Lamborghini Temerario GT3 to North America for the very first time. More on that entry later on though. To clarify though, not every car slated to race in 2026 took part in testing. For example, AO Racing's Rexy Porsche was absent, as were both of the Pratt Miller Corvettes, which are usually featured in GTD Pro. I'll start off the testing report with the GTP class. Nick Yaloli set the overall fastest time of the test in Session 1, clocking in a 1 minute 35.725 in the number 93 Acura from Meyershank Racing. Meanwhile, Nico Pino delivered the second fastest time in Session 5 by going fastest in the number 85 JDC Miller Porsche 963, while the number 93 Acura also claimed third overall with its Session 2 fastest lap effort. Surprisingly, in total laps completed in the GTP field, the number 85 Porsche 963 from JDC Miller Motorsports led, logging in 323 laps over 5 sessions, completing a very strong showing from the Minnesota-based team. The primary storyline in GTP though was the debut of the 2026 updates for the manufacturers with the LMDH platform. Acura, BMW, Cadillac, and Porsche all ran the revised models with significant running for each car, with BMW especially taking the center stage with its updated M Hybrid V8, featuring a significant aerodynamic overhaul, while Team WRT made its first IMSA appearance after taking over BMW's GTP program by going fastest with a 1-2 effort in the night in Session 5. Aston Martin, meanwhile, faced an electronic issue in Session 1 that forced Ross Gunn to stop the number 23 Valkyrie, which ended their participation on Friday. But nevertheless, the test was still considered productive, as they prepare for their second season in GTP. As I briefly pointed out, JDC Miller enjoyed one of their strongest weekends in GTP, finishing with the most laps out of all the entries and having the second fastest time overall, as I briefly mentioned. Former team drivers Tymon Vanderhelm and Bryce Aaron were joined by Proton's Nico Pino and Porsche factory driver Matt Campbell. And just to be clear, there were 2 specs of Porsches on the grid, as JDC Miller ran the 2025 spec 963, while Porsche Penske Motorsport ran the new 2026 spec. Before I move on, I also want to note the absence of the new Genesis GMR 001. With this car expected to compete in IMSA, you might be confused where it was during testing. Well, although it will make its global debut in 2026, the LMDH will not join IMSA until 2027, which is why it wasn't part of the test. Elsewhere in the prototype ranks, the LMP2 teams also completed a solid test program. The quickest time came from TDS Racing's number 11 Orica, which set a 1 minute 39.176 in Session 2. The number 73 Pratt Miller Orica followed closely behind with the fastest time of Session 4, while the number 04 CrowdStrike APR entry rounded out the top 3 in the class on pace. Meanwhile, the mileage award went to the number 43 LMP2 from Inter-Europol competition, which completed precisely 400 laps across the weekend. Other key details from the test relating to LMP2 include the absence of Team Tonus, while Intersport Racing made their first IMSA appearance since 2011. Furthermore, drivers like Matthias Besch, Parker Thompson, and Enzo Fittipaldi, for example, continued settling into their new machinery after making significant changes to their driving duties in 2026. Moving on to GTD Pro. And at the top of the class was the number 48 Windward Racing Mercedes AMG GT3. It set both the fastest and the third fastest times in the class, with a best of a 1 minute 47.152 on Sunday in Session 6. Meanwhile, the number 75 Mercedes from Australian Squad 75 Express claimed second overall by topping Session 7. The German manufacturer was at the top of the leaderboard all weekend, with the number 48 Mercedes completing the most laps as well in GTD Pro, with 320 obtained by Scott Noble, Jason Hart, Lucas Stoltz, and finally Maxime Martin. For GTD, the leaderboards were also led by Windward Racing. Their number 57 Mercedes, which already won the Rolex 24 here at Daytona in 2021 and again in 2024, posted the fastest GTD time of the test, a 1 minute 47.156 set in the night in Session 5. And the time was just thousandths behind Windward's GTD Pro Mercedes time in Session 6. Magnus Racing posted the third quickest lap, with their Aston Martin Vantage setting the pace in Session 3 on the team's return to IMSA after competing in a few rounds last year. And finally, for the overall laps in GTD, Vasser Sullivan Racing topped the category with 298 laps completed by the number 12 Lexus. Now, I definitely want to point out that the GT categories generated a lot of excitement thanks to the arrival of new Evo packages and several high-profile team changes. Ferrari, Ford, and Porsche rolled out their 2026 Evo updates, with Multimatic Motorsports and Riley running the Mustang GT3 Evos, AF Corse debuting the upgraded Ferrari 296 GT3 Evo, and finally Manthey Racing and Wright Motorsports fielding the updated Porsche 911 GT3 R Evo. But of course, the star attraction was Lamborghini's all-new Temerario GT3, which replaces the long-serving Huracan. Pfaff Motorsports becomes the first team globally to test the car in North America, completing 212 laps with factory drivers Marco Mappelli and Andrea Caldarelli behind the wheel, ahead of the car's official debut at Sebring next year. Elsewhere in the GT field, Team RLL ran their McLaren on track for the very first time, following the newly announced partnership. Myers-Riley Motorsports, meanwhile, debuted their new Mustang in GTD, Manthey Racing turned their first laps in an IMSA session, and finally RS1 made their first appearance since earning a promotion to the WeatherTech series with their Porsche GT3 car. So that wraps up my report on the most recent IMSA sanctioned tests in November. While lap times and mileage only tell part of the story, the weekend definitely gave us plenty to think about heading towards a brand new season. But now I want to know what stood out to you the most from these test sessions at Daytona. Well, as always, make sure to let me know all your thoughts in the comments below.